He's coming after Tom Brady. Let's just call it what it is. He's coming after Tom Brady. That's what the hell's going on here. I mean, it's one thing to lose Tom Brady and to not be what you are. It's another thing to watch him go someplace else in his first year there. He wins the Super Bowl, not just because he's still a star quarterback, but also he played the role of GM, basically making decisions as to who should be on the team and who should be added to the team. The Antonio Browns of the world, the Rob Gronkowskis of the world, and others. So because of that, that's where if you're Bill Belichick, you've got people looking at you, looking at your legacy and what have you. And he's a highly, highly competitive individual, which anybody associated with him has attested to. And so when we take that into consideration, along with the fact that sometime during last season, he made it very, very clear to everybody else over the previous 5 years we had gone all in. We had made the necessary sacrifices. So as a result, last offseason, we didn't necessarily have that cap room, Max. Guess what? This is who we are. This is what we have. And then you take into account 8 different dudes who elect not to show up and play because of COVID-19. That's the dilemma he found himself in. In this particular instance, guys like Patrick Chung, Dante Hightower, they're scheduled to come back along with the people that he's added. They're expected to be significantly better, have more talent. And as a result, you will be reminded of the greatness of Bill Belichick. That seems to be the mission that he is on. It is clear. And I don't think that, you don't throw any shade on Bill Belichick, the coach. There is nothing to question about him as the coach. He is the greatest of all time. His accomplishment speaks for itself. There is no doubt about it. But there were a lot of questions, legitimate questions, about Bill Belichick, the GM, and Tom Brady outmaneuvered him in that regard as well. So it has you looking at Bill Belichick and saying, you should not have only lost Tom Brady, the quarterback. You should not have lost Tom Brady, the mind, somebody that could have contributed in terms of his thinking as to what the roster in New England should have contained. And all of those things that come into play now when we look at Bill Belichick, and for the first time in a very, very long time, there are questions about him in that regard. And in that regard, he had to answer it, and I think that he made steps towards doing that yesterday.
I don't think Bill Belichick sends messages. I think he tries to improve his football team, period. Now, he's been unable to do so through the draft recently on the offensive side of the ball. Aguilar at those numbers, I don't know. All right, okay, maybe he's seeing something I'm not. I think Bourne was like a good pick, nice, versatile receiver for not that much money. Jonnu Smith, same thing. Maybe he overpaid a little bit there, but Smith is entering his prime and has real offensive upside. And Judon is the typical Bill Belichick kind of linebacker that he likes. Really versatile, and he can get pressure. Look, he has not been able to improve through the draft. Maybe he's taking a shot at free agency. He had a lot of cap room. And as Warren Sharp of Sharp Analytics, Stephen A., I shout him out, tweeted yesterday when this was going down, in the first 10 years, or in the last 10 years of free agency, Belichick spent something like 300-something million. In the first 10 minutes or something like that of free agency this year, he spent half that. Spent like $150 million almost half of what he'd spent in a decade on free agents. So he knew he had to upgrade the roster. And obviously, he is now competing with a very high bar set by Tom Brady, who went out and won the freaking Super Bowl. Yes, the team was loaded, but there were a lot of loaded teams. Won the Super Bowl year one. I don't think this is sending a message to the league. I think Belichick is analyzing what he needs, and he's putting, as he tries to do every year, the best, most competitive team he can on the field.
Listen, Max, let me tip you off about something. So you sit in this chair. You're fortunate to meet a lot of great people. And I had the pleasure and what I consider the honor of asking, being summoned down. I shouldn't say summoned, but I was requested to come down and speak to Alabama's football team.
I recall.
And not once, but twice, actually.
Did you get to ride on someone's plane or something like that?
Yeah. But that's a different subject for another day. The private jet is never a bad thing. But here's the deal. When you go down and speak to Alabama, like Charles Barkley did, like the late, great Kobe Bryant has done, and others, you usually get a one-on-one with Nick Saban. You're just sitting in there. And it was one of the great, great honors that I've had in my career because I happen to consider him the greatest college coach of all time, and I love the way he handles his business. I just think he's elite in every manner. And when you listen to these guys talk, they'll never tell you, Max, they're paying attention to this guy or that guy or whatever. But what they talk about is constantly climbing. You don't stand still. You don't descend. You know, you go up, and you go up until you can't go up anymore. Then even when you reach the mountaintop, it's a new year. You start all over and all over and all over again. Well, Max, that speaks to competition. You're paying attention to the competition. To think that for 1 second that Bill Belichick doesn't have the competition in mind is nonsense. Of course he has it in mind. And then when you take into account the fact that the person at the mountaintop is a guy that he coached for the previous 20 years, that went to 9 Super Bowls, that won 6, that is widely considered the GOAT, in large part because of all the things that Bill Belichick put around him. The Ty Laws and Rodney Harrisons and others will all tell you nothing but mad respect and love for Tom Brady and his greatness. But there are multiple components that come to a championship team. And excuse me, if it wasn't for what we did on the defensive side of the ball some of those years, Tom Brady wouldn't have as many Super Bowls as he has. And they would be absolutely right. I'm not saying that Rodney Harrison never said that, but I know Ty Law did publicly. I'm just bringing up that to say if you're Belichick, who was a defensive coordinator and a 2-time champion as a defensive coordinator in New York with the Giants, who helped Bill Parcells guide the New York Jets to AFC championship games. This man's resume is nothing short of impeccable. So his mindset of thinking, no, I don't need to find another quarterback that is Tom Brady because I recognize how special he is. But if I have that mentality that those players have, which you know he did because he's the one that shaped and formulated it, his mentality is there's multiple ways to skin a cat. I can win without having a Tom Brady or a Tom Brady caliber. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.